Have you ever wondered how some people make eating healthy, exercise, and managing stress look so easy? You can too. Welcome to Wellness Wisdom, where we uncover the secrets to lasting health and happiness and empower you to make wise health choices, see results, and create a healthy lifestyle for good. Join Camille Kennard, licensed social worker, certified health and wellness coach, a self-care specialist on the journey to explore how to make health and well-being possible for you. It's a health and wellness journey you can take together. Please welcome your host, Camille Kennard.
Hello, everybody, and happy June. I know, here in Utah, we've been this coronavirus, right? And we're just starting to get out and notice that we can connect with people and see the beauty of the world. So welcome, everybody, to Wellness Wisdom today, where we uncover the secrets of health and happiness and how we can really improve ourselves, living our best life. And I'm really excited for the podcast today. I'd love to welcome you guys to my guest, Holly Toronto. Holly, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Camille, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited that you contacted me. I've been doing my podcast for a couple of years now, and it's been really fun to connect with people from all over the U.S. and beyond. And Holly comes to us from New York City, so it's exciting, that I love that she's been going through this coronavirus and has a totally different take on it than we do here in Utah, right? And so this is going to be a great conversation. And I'll just tell you a little bit about Holly. She's a master level coach through the Health Coach Institute and has 4 years of experience helping highly driven women build resilience to toxic beauty and diet messages. How many of us get a lot of that coming at us, right? And she uses intuitive and a spiritual approach that guides her clients towards self-trust, confidence, and sovereignty over their entire being. Ooh, I love that. That's so great. And their body, mind, and soul. So she and I have a lot in common here when it looks at body, mind, and body wellness. From the place of body, mind, and soul, her clients are able to make self-guided decisions and finally live the life they desire in the body they live in today. This is a powerful message, Holly, and I love the message that you're sharing. I think you probably listened to some of my podcasts and my own story about overeating and hating my body as a teenager and some of those things I went through. And I think often our message, right? What we went through, what was a challenge for us. This is a huge topic. This is a major thing that's going on with women today, is this feeling of not enough, my body's not okay the way it is, and some of the cultural messages that are out there. So I'm really excited that we get to have this conversation. And yes. I would love for you just to kind of share with us, what started you on this path? Like, what got you interested in helping women to love themselves, to love their bodies?
Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge that I have listened to several of your podcasts, and hearing you share your passion about this work is definitely what made me want to reach out to you, because I just think that this is a conversation that we can't have enough, right? When we live in a world where 91% of women are dissatisfied with their bodies and turning to disordered eating and dieting in order to manage that really speaks to a systemic issue, right? That's not our experience of disliking or being dissatisfied with our bodies is not an experience of nature, right? We're not born hating our bodies. It's an experience of conditioning. And if it's an experience of conditioning, that means that we can actually build resilience and shift our conditioning. We have the power in us to do that, but we need to know what's actually happening before we're able to make those empowered choices. So thank you for being willing to be a part of this conversation and for the values that we share. So I can just back up a little bit and just share a little bit about how I got into this work. I think it's probably pretty obvious that I didn't come into this world knowing from a tender age of 5 that when I grow up, I'm going to be a body image coach. That was not my experience. In fact, exactly the opposite. But I think that my experience around my relationship to my body is likely very similar to many women's, looking back all the way down to the tender age of 5 years old, when I started to understand that my body was different than others. And, around the age of 8, feeling oh, I can actually change my body, and going on my first diet around that age, and just sort of learning these messages about my body that really were coming from this place of your job as a little girl turning into a woman is to stay pretty. to stay conventionally attractive, to stay small. And so I took that charge and I ran with it for about 28 years of my life. And so, throughout my adolescence and teenage years, a lot of disordered eating, a lot of body shame, a lot of just feeling really, really dissatisfied with how I looked, but also just not questioning it or even having it be questioned very much by adults in my life. Like there wasn't really a conversation about like, how do you feel about your body or why are you taking that action towards your body? And then I got into my 20s. I actually moved to New York City at the age of 18 to pursue a career in fashion. Interestingly, I picked a very image-centric industry to pursue as my career. So I went to school in New York City for fashion, and then I graduated and I worked in the industry for about 7 years. And during that 7 years, that's when the disordered eating really started to amplify, and that I was in a culture that was really, really valuing women based on their external appearance, both in how the size of their body and also how they dressed and their conventional attractiveness. And I definitely got wrapped into that. So I was bonding with other women in my life around dieting and constantly trying to shrink my body to no avail. Like it didn't ever work for me. And I guess that's probably not a surprise because as we know, diets fail 95 to 98% of the time. So a turning point, or I shouldn't say a turning point, really sort of like the rock bottom moment in a way happened over the course of about a couple of years when after I got married, I had been struggling with female adult acne. So it felt like I was wearing a lot of my body image issues right on my face for people to see. And I decided I was going to take a holistic approach to healing that acne. So I wasn't going to do the antibiotic route. I wasn't going to do the topical route. I wanted to heal that through food and nutrition, which has its place. That path has its place for sure when it's in balance. But for me, what that looked like is working with a naturopathic doctor who overnight put me on a really extreme elimination diet. And I won't share exactly what that is, but I cut out lots and lots and lots of foods. And it was supposed to be a temporary 6-week experiment to see how certain foods were reacting in my body, like if certain foods were causing my skin to break out. Yet that 6 weeks came and went, and there was no plan for integration. There was no plan to like test and no plan to like get me back to normal eating. And so I ended up staying on that diet for about a year and a half. And during that time, a few things happened. One being that my skin did not clear up. Two being that I developed some pretty severe digestive issues. But the third was that I lost a lot of weight. And that became very, very noticeable because of my frame. And so I started to receive all of the praise, all of the accolades that women in our society get when they're able to lose weight and keep it off. And so I actually became a health coach because of that. So I started my initial health coaching practice off of that premise of like, I'm going to help people lose weight through really restrictive dieting. And there was this really insidious thing happening for me under the surface in that, my hair was falling out. So I was experiencing some like health issues. Again, I had digestive issues. And then I became someone who was socially isolating. So I would choose to not go out with friends if I felt like I couldn't control the food that was going to be there. And so I kind of felt like I was living this like double life in a way that like I was pursuing this coaching practice and building my coaching practice around helping people lose weight. But then there was like this insidious thing that was happening for me. And the turning point came when I went on a trip with my husband to Alaska. We were on a cruise.
I love Alaska.
I honestly wish I'm thankful for that trip, but I plan to go back that one day because the trip did not turn out how I would have hoped it did because it became very clear to me at that point that I had developed orthorexic tendencies. And for anybody who doesn't know what orthorexia is, it's the unhealthy obsession with being healthy. When being healthy and eating clean becomes something that is so obsessive and compulsive that it interferes with basic functioning and life and enjoyment of. And so that was very apparent to me on this trip, and that I was having anxiety every single day because I was on a cruise, right? And all you do on cruises is eat delicious foods. And so I was feeling really triggered, and I was feeling like I was crying every single day. And, my loving husband had to sit down and share with me hey, this you don't seem very happy or healthy. And you're kind of ruining this trip. So what's happening for you? And so that was sort of a moment where I had to be really honest and reckon with myself and say what am I creating? And, as synergy would have it, I brought one book with me on this trip. It's a book called Intuitive Eating. And it's about having a sustainable and peaceful relationship with food and how you can create that. And I saw myself very, very clearly in this book. And, I'm fast forwarding a lot here, but I came back from that trip and I really did the work to integrate those principles. That book brought me into the body acceptance, the body liberation movement, understanding my self-worth outside of my external appearance. And I really started to shift to do the inner work for myself, and then shifting the focus of my practice over time to be able to help women do the same thing.
This is a great story. And I think I relate to it. And I know there's probably a lot of women out there that relate to it, that, our body image and our self-image have been so tied, right? If I don't like my body, then I must not be okay the way I am. And orthorexia, I have learned a little bit about that. And I've seen clients that have that, where you can't live life because you're so paranoid about how many calories are in that food that you bring to your mouth, and I think that it's a complicated relationship sometimes that we have with food, because we relate the food to weight or to not being okay, right? I had a client the other day who said, my face is too round. And I said, who said it's too round? Like, who said that?
Who wrote that rule?
Yeah. And she was like, I guess it's something I just believe. And I said, well, what if you could believe something different? What if you're okay? What if nothing's wrong with you and you're okay the way you are? I thank you so much for sharing, because I think that your story is very moving, because it's something that a lot of women are working with, because they think, I want to be healthy. And then we might go to extremes. Intuitive and mindful eating is what I teach my clients, really like noticing what your body needs, listening to it, listening to those hunger cues, those fullness cues. I think that's really important. And it sounds like your story is one of really going from this place of not liking yourself or your body and getting kind of almost to a place of rigidity with it, which is easy for us to get to, where we're too rigid, and then allowing yourself to say, you know what, I can enjoy food again. I can listen to my body. And that is actually mentally and physically the healthiest way to be. I didn't realize that percentage of women that were unhealthy with were unhappy with their body was so high.
It's like basically all of them.
Yes, 91%, and during this COVID time, I know a lot of my clients have been saying, well, I've been emotionally eating, and I've gained weight. And it's almost like this shame if you gain weight, instead of it being like just something that you observe, that, I noticed that during the COVID time, I was more emotional, or I felt stressed, or, just the self-compassion of giving yourself some care and some love. I think this is just a really important conversation for us to be curious about, like, what am I telling myself about my body? Yes. And what would I rather believe about myself? So when you were, learning to love and accept your body, appreciate your body, what were some of the things that you did that really shifted it for you? It sounds like learning about intuitive eating, but what other things really shifted the way you were taking care of yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. And intuitive eating was a big part of that. That was definitely the entryway point for me. And just learning, I kind of want to just acknowledge the piece that you said about gaining weight during COVID, right?
Yeah.
The quarantine 15.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the culture that we live in that could create something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then, allow us to load up shame around that. But the thing about our bodies are so wise and intuitive that they actually, when we get out of their way and stop trying to manipulate them and change them and shrink them and make them be something that they don't want to be, they self-regulate. Our bodies self-regulate weight in the same way they do temperature when we just get out of their way. And so, there might be times when we have these fluctuations that happen just because of different life circumstances, but we can trust, right, that our bodies know exactly what we're doing, and we can just get out of their way and really allow them to lead us. I always say that our bodies are our greatest teacher. They're our partners. They want what's best for us, but we're sort of conditioned to see them as the enemy, right? That there's something that we have to fight, control, and manipulate. And so I just want to just name that for anybody who's feeling.
I love that. The wisdom of the body. Yeah.
Yeah, just let her, and you'll notice when I talk about my body, I say her, because that's how I identify. And for me, I find that, and I learned this from one of my teachers, that it's much harder to hate my body when I'm identifying her as a person, when I'm saying she, her, and like, it's harder for me to say like, I hate her or I'm dissatisfied with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus like when we're thinking of our bodies as this object, right? Or like something that's an it or a vessel or a vehicle, right? Like that's something that it's like, it's more separate from us, less humanizing, right? So that would be my number one tip for anybody.
I love that. Yeah.
Super effective for me is just like honoring her, honoring my body and personifying her in that way. So intuitive eating, naming my body as she identifies. But also, something that has been really integral to me and the work that I do with my clients is understanding where this comes from, right? Where our dissatisfaction with our body comes from. Because I think, when we first started off our conversation, we were talking about how the experience of disliking or feeling dissatisfied or having body image issues is a condition of conditioning, right? It's not nature. It's not within our nature to hate our bodies. In fact, the opposite is true. We come into this world screaming and crying to have our needs met.
Yeah.
And demanding them. And even as toddlers, we're spinning around and we don't care if our tummies are showing or our buns are showing. We're like kids and we're present and we're experiencing and having joy in our bodies. But around that age of, probably about 5 years old, when we start to spend a lot more time with our peers and we start to create a lot of our formative beliefs around that age, from our really does become conditioned into us. And the thing about this, our body image issues, again, it's coming from the system of beliefs, diet culture, which values weight and size and physical characteristics of the body over actual health and well-being. And there's a vested interest in keeping people of all genders, but like women, it feels like it's really amplified for, keeping them in a place of being dissatisfied with their bodies, right? Like this is a $70 billion industry. And if we include the wellness industry as a whole, which does have a lot of diet culture stuff in it, it's trillions of dollars, right? So there's a massive vested interest in keeping us in that place. And the thing about diet culture and beauty culture and the culture at large is that it has conditioned us to believe that our external appearance, right, is our value. Our external appearance is in many ways our currency. And that currency is what allows us to have resources, right? Resources of success, resources of community, right? Resources of love, relationship, partnership. And we place all of this pressure on our body and our external appearance to get us that thing, right? To get us that resource. And so when we're looking at body image issues, it's important to remember that it actually has very little to do with like cellulite, very little to do with wrinkles or stretch marks or tummy rolls or weight, right? And everything to do with what we think that perceived flaw, right, is preventing us from having.
Yeah.
Work becomes, how can I allow myself to know that I'm worthy and deserving of having that thing, the success, the relationships, the clothes, the experiences that I know that I am wildly deserving of having, regardless of what my body looks like. And I say that all with a deep knowing and wanting to just underscore, circle, highlight that it's not an overnight process. Like you might hear me say that it activates something in you where you're like, oh my gosh, yes, that can be true for me. But there's work that has to come in peeling back those layers and deconditioning from these harmful messages.
Oh, that's so powerful. And, the things we learn from just a young age, like when you said the conditioning, as a psychotherapist for years, helping people change their beliefs, of what are you believing about yourself and what would you rather believe? And how do these beliefs come about? We start with maybe that one belief of when we're 5 years old, seeing someone on a screen that's really thin, and then we start thinking, oh, my belly is not okay the way it is, right? And this whole, I love what you said, that connection of if we have a flaw, that means, it's almost like a shame feeling, right? Like I'm not okay, rather than, we can all improve how we take care of ourselves, but this shame of, I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of success. All of these things based on our body. I mean, that's really, I think you and I both want to just like shout out at the rooftops of,
Yes.
hey guys, we need some systemic change with this, right? We need some really to look at this and say, can we start valuing ourselves and others based on who we are rather than putting all this stock into fitting a certain size? You know, I know I have had a lot of clients who have felt like until I'm this size, I can't be happy. Instead of it being this just, hey, being good with, what if you're okay just how you are right now? What if there's nothing that you need to change and that you're fine? It's a lot of pressure, like you said, that we put on ourselves to change. And you know, there's here in Utah, we even have a lot of cosmetic surgery and things for people to look a certain way. And I could go into a whole another story about that. And even, you know, looking at supermodels who are usually around 5'10", 5'11", and about 100 and something pounds, which is not realistic, right? Or the photoshopping that happens. And I love that you said this is a systemic problem, right? Of looking at, and then it feeds this negative body talk and the way we see ourselves. I love the idea. When I was looking at your website and everything, and I saw that you said your body is a person, not an object.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we even see that right now with everything that's happening with racism, is when we make a person an object, then that's when things kind of go down and we're really, where the racism comes out, the prejudice, all of that. When we look at them as different from us and when we objectify, just the same thing with our body, when we make it separate from who we are. I love that idea of that she might be feeling kind of sad because you're not being a friend to your body, right? That our body is actually an intricate part of us. I think this is such a powerful thing to think about. What if your body is a person that needs love and nurturing and care and concern, and instead of shaming it or making it into an object that's separate from us. I mean, I think this is why I believe a lot in the mindfulness of just bringing yourself present to your body. And like you said, the wisdom of the body knows what it needs if we will just listen to her and what she's saying, right?
Yes.
So I love this. I think this is all so powerful. And you're right, it's not easy. You know, for a while I thought I was just going to help people start eating better and exercise and love themselves more. And then I realized this is a deep thing. This is a deep trauma from childhood around food and body. There's beliefs that we've believed for years that we think are fact. Like I say, the client that I was talking to the other day, she thought it was a fact that if she gained weight, she wasn't beautiful. That was like a fact, right? And I'm like, why is that something that our culture will support? And like you said, I had a friend who was actually dealing with an eating disorder, and she was so thin that it was not in a healthy place. She was actually having all kinds of health issues because she had lost so much weight, and people were telling her that she looked nice, that she looked beautiful. And I thought, you know, she's actually, her head is bigger than her body. She's actually not healthy looking. And so what is it about our culture that we're saying the skinnier you are, the better you are, and that we give people compliments? I love the idea of not really focusing on complimenting people's bodies, just complimenting people for who they are and what you see in them. Yeah. And the beauty that they bring to the world, because we're all beautiful, you know. And I'm not talking about skin deep. I'm talking about like the beauty and the things that we share with the world. So I think this is such a powerful conversation to have, and to know, you know, wherever you're at in loving your body. You know, that I had another client the other day who said, I asked her, so what of your physical appearance do you like about yourself? And she said, nothing. Yeah. And I said, okay, so we're at a place where you don't like your body, but what if we could get to a place where you at least accept it? Right. Or say, I'm glad that it can help me walk and play basketball, which she loves to do. And, you know, what can my body do for me? I love Beauty Redefined. They talked about our body as an instrument, not an ornament.
Yes.
Because so many times we're like looking at it as, okay, it has to look a certain way, rather than how does it help me and how can I help it? And the nurturing and the nourishment that I can give my body. Anyways, I just love this conversation.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
I sense your passion with it, and it gets me so excited to
Yeah.
connect with somebody else that feels the same way. And I'm really glad, Camille, that you brought up the racism piece of this, because, you know, when I was telling my story, what I didn't acknowledge is that there are many intersecting influences on our relationship to our body and our body image. You know, there was many for me in that, like, you know, I grew up white and I grew up with a lot of privilege, and I also had like thin privilege. I already lived in a thinner body, right? So there's a lot of privilege that I had in the body that I live in that allowed for my recovery from diet culture to be a little bit more celebrated and a little bit more like people could look at me and be like, yes, great, good for you, Holly, that you're loving your body. Whereas maybe somebody who's living in a larger body, for them to go through the experience of learning to love and accept their body in a world that's telling them not to, that can be, that adds like a much deeper layer of complication to this. And I just want to acknowledge that, like, there is privilege, right, when we're going through this journey, and not everyone's journey is going to look the same. And then as far as the racism piece of it, like, race absolutely impacts body image. And I would love to recommend a really great book to your listeners, because, you know, we are living in a time where we're collectively, I think across the board, most people are hopefully on the same page about wanting to end systemic injustice towards Black people and people of color, and really looking at the racial origins of diet culture and fat phobia, or, you know, the fear of becoming fat or the fear of living in a larger body. A lot of that actually has its roots in racism. And there's a really, really great book by Dr. Sabrina Strings called the racial history of fat phobia. I think that's what, it's called Fearing the Black Body. And then the tagline is the racial origins of fat phobia, and really talking about how a lot of the ways that we think about our bodies now come from this place of trying to create hierarchy amongst bodies to justify slavery and racism. So, you know, white women to be smaller and to make their bodies like slighter compared to somebody who lives in a Black body, and kind of assuming that the person who lives in a Black body has a bigger appetite and their bodies are bigger. And that was, whether that was true or not, that was the narrative. That was what was kind of being upheld by culture. And so it's important for us to look at that. And, you know, I'm not somebody who is prepared to educate on anti-racism. I would absolutely recommend going to a person of color or a Black person to learn from them. But really educating ourselves around that sort of racial impact around body image and how we're seeing ourselves is an incredibly important part to this process. Because I like to say that, you know, healing our relationship to our body, we do it for ourselves, right? But we also, it's one thing to just accept our bodies, but like, how much more beautiful is it when we're able to do this work and then impact the lives of others? And so it's also shifting how we are seeing other bodies as well in doing that work.
Yes, thank you so much. And that is beautiful. Can you share again what the name of that book is?
Yeah, it's called Fearing the Black Body by Sabrina Strings.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I mean, the fat phobia that we have and the racial ties to that, I don't think that's ever really come to me in that way. That's a really eye-opening thing to think about. And I hope those of you who are listening, we can kind of look at that and look at where maybe some of this has come from. I know before we started recording today, I was telling you how in graduate school I had friends who were from Botswana, Africa. And in that culture, the bigger your body is, the better, right? It's really looked at as that you have money and you have the ability to feed yourself, and it's considered beautiful because you can create children if you have bigger hips, and, you know, that whole, thing. And I remember my friend saying to me, you need to gain weight. Like, you're not fat enough, right? She basically said that. And I thought, wow, we do not say that in our culture. But again, like, recognizing what are we believing and where did that come from? It's the same thing. As I've thought a lot about my own, if I have any of my own like prejudice or the way I treat other people, I think this is a place to look at. Are we judging ourselves for what we look like? And then are we looking at other people and saying, it's not okay to have that body, instead of just like we're saying it's wonderful to be a person of color, or, you know, that we're all, there's many colors in our world, which is amazing and beautiful. What if there's also many body images that are beautiful and wonderful? Whether you have, whether you have hips or your body is a straighter body, whatever it looks like, that body is also beautiful. I've really loved, you know, looking at that. You know, I know Dove did their kind of like looking at beauty, and they had women of all sizes and colors and shapes, and just really accentuating their beauty, you know, that's there. So I think this is so interesting. I really want to read that book. It sounds really interesting to think about how we've shamed the Black culture and even the Black body, right? I think that's really interesting to think about, and something for us all to kind of be curious about and kind of notice what we're believing, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think this is we could probably talk forever and all day. I love this. So we're going to just take a little quick break, but when we get back, I would love for you to share how your story is so moving, and it's something we all, I think, can relate to. And then how you're using what you learned and, you know, just being a health coach to help other women really start to shift some of these beliefs and to start really loving and caring for their body.
Do you feel stressed, overweight, and unhappy? Are you tired of setting goals that you don't accomplish? Do you want more energy, motivation, and focus to create your dreams? Many people struggle to keep up the commitment, motivation, and confidence to be successful, to reach their goals and aspirations. They often let other things get in the way of their personal health and happiness. It doesn't have to be this way. You can change. Join us for a 6-week online health transformation workshop. Learn about the mind-body connection, overcome obstacles to health, create daily health rituals, get support from others like you, and change your life for good. Register now at flourishwellnessconsulting.com under online group workshops, or email Camille at flourishwellnessconsulting.com. Our gift to you as a podcast listener is $50 off the transformation workshop. Use the promo code podcast50 when you register. This year, make peace with your body and like who you are for good.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wellness Wisdom. This is a great conversation. Any woman that doesn't like her body, which is 90% of us, right? You need to listen to this, because I'm talking to Holly Toronto, and she's a certified master level health coach. And really her passion is for helping women, you know, stop depriving themselves, restricting, feeling guilt and shame about their body, and really just valuing themselves for who they are, and nurturing and nourishing the body. Our body, we can call it her. Yeah. She is there, right? She is our body is a person that needs and deserves love and care. And I love this conversation. And Holly, I know that, you know, this is why you have a passion for it, is because of your own experiences of what you went through as you dieted and really as you kind of listened to fashion culture and what it was telling you. And I think that we can all just start to be curious about what we're believing. And is it something we're believing that's being pushed by the media or the culture? Or is it something we really want to believe about ourselves? And I'm just wondering, like, when you have a client come in, I would love for you to share with us, what do you do to help them when they've really their whole lives, maybe even since they were a kid? I mean, this is starting so early. This is what bothers me too, is It's starting at 5 or 6 years old, where women are, and little girls are looking at their body, comparing it to other girls and not feeling okay. What do you do to kind of help people start to, you know, just shift some of those beliefs and that cultural, what's being fed to us through the culture?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is that it looks totally different for every single client. I'm sure you know that too, as a psychotherapist, that like a client come in, and though you have like the same desired goal at the end, the way that they move through the path is totally nonlinear. Yet I do have a 4-part framework that I use in my private coaching, in my group coaching that I do. And this is what I've seen really is sort of the path that people follow, totally nonlinear, literally, I can't even say that word, out of order for themselves. So the first place that we always start with is awareness. again, like we said before, we're socialized into this culture. If you were born in the past century and a half, you were born into diet culture. It's something that we are swimming in every single day. And so oftentimes we don't know what we don't know. Right. And so when I'm first starting to work with a client, there's a lot of awareness building. There's a lot of going back into their stories and understanding, when was the first time you learned there was something wrong with your body? And how did that story imprint on your life? How did that show up in your life? Who reinforced that story for you? So really understanding like where this is coming from, right? The second piece of it would be focusing on nourishment. And when I'm looking at nourishment, I'm looking at the whole person, right? Because what I feel is that we are dynamic human beings with many different facets of us that need our attention. And when we overly focus on one, and our culture tells us to overly focus on physical health, the others suffer, right? So in my experience, I was overly focusing on physical health, so much so that my mental, emotional, and social well-being were being harmed. And so when we're looking at nourishment, we're looking at, yes, physical health and how you're nourishing your bodies with pleasurable and satisfying foods and moving your body in a way that feels really good. But also, how are you taking care of yourself emotionally? How are you taking care of yourself mentally, spiritually? Do you have strong connections with others? Are you being creative? Or do you have passion and purpose in your life? So really looking at nourishment from that 360 perspective. The next piece of it is something I call resilience. And resilience is definitely like a buzzword right now, with Brene Brown bringing that on the scene. Thank you, Brene. But what resilience is about is like taking that awareness that I mentioned earlier and challenging it, right? So like what the stories that you're telling yourself, like you were saying about your client before, like who wrote that rule that your face is too round, right? I had a client who wanted to be a personal trainer, yet she felt like she couldn't because of the body that she lived in, right? And like, who wrote that rule? And so I actually saw pictures of other personal trainers that looked like her. And I was like, this woman's doing it. Why can't you? Right? I had another client the other day where we had a conversation and she's like, I see all of these, body positive women on Instagram and TikTok. And I'm just like, they look so confident and beautiful. And I'm like, well, what are they believing about themselves? And she was like, that it doesn't matter what they look like, right? That they have something to offer the world that is outside of their external appearance. And I was like, well, why is that true for them and not for you? And she was like, well, I guess my logic doesn't make sense. And in that moment, it's disrupting the pattern, right? When she's like, the way I've been thinking about this doesn't make sense. For the personal training, for the client who wanted to be a personal trainer, by the time we finished our work together, she'd become a personal trainer. So it's cool. It's really about like challenging. That's what resilience is about. It's about challenging those beliefs, revising those beliefs, releasing what doesn't serve you, so that you can really step into what the fourth piece of it is something that I personally call sovereignty. But for other people, it might look like liberation or autonomy or freedom, whatever word really resonates with them. And what I say that is when you are able to reclaim your energy and your brain space from dieting and body shame, right? Because the average woman spends 12 hours of her week worried about her appearance.
Oh my,
and so when you're able to get that brain space back and your energy back and you're feeling confident in who you are as a person, what do you want to do with that? Who do you want to allow yourself to become? And really allowing yourself to step into that from that place of agency. You get to decide what your life looks like, not diet culture, not your parents, not your spouse, not your children, not anybody else besides you, right? So though I call myself and I'm certified as a health coach, there is when we're doing this work of body image, right? I always say that it's like a gateway to your coming home to yourself.
That's so beautiful. I just want to sit with that for a second. What would it be like to come home to yourself? Yeah. To look at your limiting beliefs as just that they've limited what your opportunities are because you believe something that's not true about yourself. Oh, I love that. And to disrupt certain patterns, I say we have mental habits that we don't realize. Sometimes it's subconscious that we believed all our life. And what if it wasn't true? And what if there was something else you could believe about yourself? I love that idea of the freedom and sovereignty, right? Like, look, what could I do in the world if I didn't believe that? What could I accomplish? What life be like if every day I was good in my own skin, if I was happy with who I am? And I think it's a journey. Like, I don't think tomorrow any of us are going to wake up and just be like, I'm great. Nothing's wrong with me, right? It's this negativity bias that our mind tends to go to. But if we can start wondering where these come from and challenging it and starting to look at what we feel like when we believe something different, right? When we believe we're good enough, that our body deserves nourishment. I love that. I always talk about nourishing versus depleting, right? What depletes, what nourishes us. Yes. And really looking at it as your body is a person that deserves that care, that self-care, right? Yeah, this is really powerful. I love what you're doing for your clients and the difference you're making in the world. I think the two of us should go out and keep talking about this everywhere that we can, right? And just recognizing that we can start shifting some of those belief patterns to really find purpose and meaning and enjoyment in our lives, right? I love that you said even like, what hobbies do you want to have, or what purpose do you want to have? It's mind, body, spirit, all of that. How would you feel if you could get rid of all the time you're spending on having to twist things in your body or change what you're eating, or the obsession with you, to being able to open your life to whatever is there and whatever possibilities are there for you? I really love that. So when you have a client who has a belief, because I've had this before, that really it's true and that they cannot change the way they're viewing themselves, that they are not okay the way they are. What do you do with that when they come in and they're just like, unless I lose weight, I'm not beautiful, I'm not okay?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and that does happen from time to time. I would say that a lot of my clients come to work with me because they're at a place where they're fed up, right? They've done the dieting, they've done all of the things and it hasn't worked, and they're at a place where they're just ready to wash their hands of it. And so there's already that like little level of acceptance that's there. Like, at least even if there's not acceptance, there's like a willingness, right? That's what I say to a lot of my clients. I'm like, when we first start working together, though they might come in with that belief, like, I can't accept my body unless it changes. And I'll ask them, are you willing to see that differently? Right? Are you willing? And if they have that little bit of willingness, I'm like, all right, I can work with you. There might be times where somebody's actually not a good fit to work with me if they're feeling like I'm unwilling to see this any different, right? With like our beliefs, sometimes they're super precious to us, and to change our beliefs is like rattling our identity. And so I always say, I get it, right? And it would feel deeply out of integrity with me to work with somebody who's like main focus, right? If like the outcome that they are seeking from our work together is to lose weight, because I cannot promise that to them. And so, like I said before, there has to be that level of willingness usually. But that said, I work with clients for several months, and they might still be feeling towards the end of our work together, they're like, okay, I feel at peace around food. I have a level of acceptance in my body, but there's this part of me that still wants to lose weight, right? And so what I say to them is like, I understand why you want to lose weight, right? Because we live in a society that values thinness and conventional attractiveness and what that is apparently going to get you. I understand. And so I always come from that place of affirmation and validation of what that person is experiencing. And then we just work together to continue to challenge that belief and say to them, okay, I understand why you're feeling that way. And the progress is in them shifting their action that they're taking in reaction to that pain or that belief, right? So instead of going right to a diet, right to trying to shrink their body, it's like, okay, how can I actually lean further into acceptance? How can I actually lean further into respect? Because that's another thing that I'll say to them, like, you feel like you can't accept or love your body right now. Can you at least respect it? You kind of hit on that before too, like just respect what it's able to do for you. And trying to avoid any sense of like ableism, because I know everyone's bodies have different capabilities, but can you respect that your digestion works for you, that your heart is beating, that your lungs are breathing, that your body is working for you every single day to keep you alive? Because the truth of the matter is that without this body, you wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
You literally wouldn't be here. So how can we bring in that level of respect and shift the reaction to the belief?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like the leaning into acceptance, right? Just, I sometimes say just trying it on, right? Like, even if you right now don't maybe believe it, just what would it feel like if you could accept your body a bit more, right? What I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed this too, and maybe this is a question too, is if someone's body really, their health is at risk because of their weight, right? Where they, a doctor's told them this is something you need to be able to, because of your heart or these different conditions you could have. I've had clients come in like that before who've said, you know, my doctor told me I need to lose weight, and then there's all the shame and everything. And what I've found, and maybe you found this too, is as they accept themselves, as they start changing their beliefs and they start doing things that nourish them, sometimes the weight releases just as a byproduct, right? It's not an obsession or whatever, but they may still release some of the weight when they're not obsessed about it. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if you've seen that as well, where, you know, sometimes just nourishing and really taking care of your body will get to a more healthy physical state. Is what kind of I've seen too.
I think that can happen. I would say that with my clients specifically, like many of them, they've thrown away their scale. So we're not even looking at the scale.
Right. We don't either. Yeah.
Yeah. And for also many of them, they haven't been to the doctor in years because our medical system is so steeped in weight stigma, which is actually far worse for someone's health than actual weight itself. There's lots of scientific studies that show that stigma being on, and this goes back to racism too, right? Like being on the receiving end of stigma, whether it's for your size, for your weight, whatever it is, can actually cause negative health outcomes more so than weight. And so when I'm working with my clients, as much as we can really lean into the weight neutral perspective and say like, yeah, like wherever your body falls on that spectrum is where your body is supposed to be. Because I find anytime we do overly focus on the weight, right? Or if weight does come up, there's still this focus on restriction, trying to change the body, going on the diet. The system of beliefs that I work in with my clients is the Health at Every Size movement, which I'm not sure if you're familiar.
I am.
And it's a research-backed study that looked at two groups of people. They had a dieting group and they had a Health at Every Size group, right? And they studied them for over the course of a year. And the Health at Every Size group, they focused on health-promoting activities, right? So using intuitive eating, moving their bodies, sleeping, managing stress, doing body image work, things like that to really improve their health. And then the other group did the traditional weight loss dieting thing, right? And so while the dieting group saw initial health improvements in terms of lower blood pressure and all of those types of things, and they saw weight loss, at the 1-year follow-up, they didn't see those improvements had gone away, right? So they had put back on the weight and then some, which often happens happens to 60% of people who lose weight. And then their health conditions deteriorated versus the Health at Every Size. They didn't necessarily see weight loss, right? Their they saw the exact same health improvements in terms of lower blood pressure, triglycerides, all of those types of things, all of those basic health measurements, right? Those maintained past the year follow-up, right? And the reason for that is because they were creating a sustainable way of honoring and caring for their body that wasn't rooted in this, like, I'm going on a diet and then I go off the diet and then I'm on the diet and then I'm off the diet, right? They're doing something that's sustainable for their well-being over time. And that's what actually creates well-being.
Yeah. So I love this, really caring for yourself, and that could be getting enough sleep, how you look at your stress, how you are able to work with stress, moving, all of these things. And looking at weight as neutral, that's an interesting way to look at it. If we can start looking at that, and also maybe that when we go into the doctor, they might be too obsessed with the weight, right? The doctor, her or himself, right? Like, I think that's an interesting thing to think about. And
I've had clients go to the doctor and be in larger bodies, get on the scale, and then do all of the the normal tests that are run to check for health. Their numbers are fine across the board, fine. but their doctor still tells them that they need to lose weight.
Mm.
And I'm like, why? How does that make sense, right? Like their numbers are showing their health. And then the doctor recommends something that fails 95 to 98% of the time, right? And then built into that is this sense of like, it's your fault, right? It's a moral failing if you're unable to lose weight. And so I really do think that there's a massive opportunity for our medical community. And again, I'm not a doctor and I won't purport to be, I won't pretend that I am a doctor. And I have a lot of respect for doctors. And I do think that many of them are trying to do their best, but I think we have enough evidence at this point, going back, 70 years at this point, that diets don't work, right? And so there's people like Linda Bacon and Lucy Aphramore who wrote the book Body Respect, that are really trying to amplify this other side of the conversation. Like, how can we shift towards more equitable medical practices and stop stigmatizing people for the size of their body and really focus on what actually makes a difference to someone's well-being, instead of the stigma, the shame, the fat phobia, all of that actually does far, far more damage to someone's health.
Yeah, I love the idea of like looking at well-being, right? Which there's that whole wellness wheel, right? Physical, spiritual, emotional, social. During this pandemic, it's been so interesting. I think physical health, of course, we want to support and help people with their physical health, but I almost saw this mental health crisis as a secondary thing. And I see it also with that body image that, we may be shaming all the secondary, this you're not okay that our culture is pushing at people is actually causing maybe even more problems than the physical health problems, is what I'm kind of saying. That there's this depression and sadness and mental health issues with not being okay with you, just loving you for you and being good in your own skin and loving yourself. And that everybody is beautiful. I mean, I love that we've started to see that with the, more women having body positivity and sharing, sizes that aren't sizes that we used to see in the media, right? Or different women of different shapes and things. So I love that. And it's pro self-care, right? Really looking at, like with my clients, I'm like, what is it that you love, that lights you up, that makes you want to live? Is it reading a really great book? Is it gardening in your garden? Is it taking a walk outside? What is it that just is, it brings you peace and well-being and that feeling of completeness and being okay with the world, knowing those things for yourself, I think is really powerful. Is there any specific, I know I really want to talk to you forever, but is there any specific client that you can think of where there was, a transformation in the way she was able to look at herself and how that it promoted her mental and physical well-being? Is there one that you could think of that comes to your mind?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite client stories to tell. When I'm feeling sick of telling my own story, I tell hers. Yeah. I'm sure you know that as like a wellness person who uses speaking as a way to promote your business. Her story is incredibly powerful, and she's someone that I work with to this day. So she is and when we started working together, is a fitness professional. So she leads group fitness classes. She had started her own really successful fitness company. She had a history in theater and kind of left the theater industry because of all of the expectations of thinness and attractiveness and all of that. And she had horror stories. So before we started working together, about a year before we started working together, she was up for a role with a very famous fitness company to become one of their instructors. I will not name names, but a very fitness company. And she was up for a role with them. And they told her with the audition that she needed her body to be as aspirational as possible. And I look at that word aspirational when she told me that. Like, how can people desire more to look like me? Yeah. And I think about that as a health coach, as somebody, who's out there, trying to support people in their health and well-being. There's this expectation of like what somebody who is quote unquote healthy should look like. And that's often this like aspirational, like, and it's everyone kind of knows it. It's like the white, like thin female looking body who's like yoga body, perfectly toned. It's like, that's the aspirational body that we're kind of painted, but we're inundated with all the time, at least in this decade. So she was told her body needed to be as aspirational as possible. And she took that charge and ran with it because she really wanted this role. And she went on 2 very, very extreme diets and was able to lose a lot of weight. And she she went to the audition, and she still didn't get the role, right? So here she had gone on these really extreme diets. And the week that happened, the week that she found out that she didn't get the role, her body shut down, right? So as many diets will do when they go to that place, it's like your metabolism will shut down and your body will just start putting back on the weight that it lost because it's going into survival mode. She lost her period, which is also very common in over exercising and over dieting.
Yeah.
And she lost her hair. And she had a host of health issues come up for her that were as a result of this dieting, and she didn't get the role. So this was like this crash that happened in her life. And she reached out to me because she had been following me for a while and we knew each other socially. And she's like, all right, it's time for us to start working together. I know I can't go on like this. And so we had our work cut out for us. And we really did a lot of work to disconnect this idea that she could only be successful and seen as worthy and loved if she was in this smaller body. Right. And so it took time, right? But over the course of that time, her weight settled where it was supposed to be. Her hair grew back, her period came back, her weight stabilized, and she finally felt at peace around food. And she experienced a level of acceptance in her body that she had never experienced ever. Like she'd always, similar to me, the age of 5 years old, disliking her body. And now she's experiencing this level of acceptance. And she used to say that her thoughts about her body and food were going by her in her brain, like the New York Stock Exchange, like the ticker tape of like, how much did you eat today? How do you compare to this person? What size are your pants? Like all of these thoughts, all of this energy and brain space was going to managing her body and food. And now she was like, that ticker tape is gone. I have all of this energy and brain space. What do I want to do with that? And so she really started to lean into her spiritual practice and her relationships. And by now, well, COVID has kind of changed things. She actually started to put some of her energy back towards her initial passion of acting and started taking acting classes, but doing it from a place of like, I don't need a director or somebody like who I'm auditioning for to validate me. I'm doing this for myself because I love this craft. I love this art and I'm passionate about it. And it was this completely different experience of pursuing something that she's passionate about. And that to me just so perfectly articulates the arc of what I hold for all of my clients and what I hold for all women, that they get that same gift of, again, it's a homecoming. It's about coming home to yourself outside of all of these expectations of beauty and thinness.
I love that. Freedom, right? A freedom of really just being good with yourself and who you are. And that's a really inspiring story to hear about, and to know that, each of us can, really start to do those things that you mentioned, just kind of being aware and stepping back and noticing what we would like to believe, about ourselves and what feels good and feels like home to us. I love that. That's really powerful. I'm going to take just another quick break. And when we get back, I'd love for you to share, I call it kind of words of wisdom, a couple of suggestions you have for people moving forward that they could try out to really start shifting their body image, how their beliefs, or anything that you've noticed is kind of your common tips that you share with people. That would be great.
Mindful health to help you flourish. What if in just 90 days you could completely change your life? If you could start losing the weight that's been weighing you down, get better sleep, eat better, have more energy, and have a healthy lifestyle for good. Have you ever wondered why changing your health is so hard? Do you want to believe it is possible? What you mentally focus on grows. This program is set up to help you grow a garden of health. In just 90 days, you can learn the habits of health. This is not a diet or a short-term health challenge, but a healthy lifestyle change for the long term. Health starts in your mind. Through this workbook and audios, you'll be guided and empowered with the confidence to see results and change your life. 30 days to plant the seeds of beliefs and mindset. 30 days to nourish the seeds through daily health habits. And 30 days to grow and thrive by gaining confidence and energy when you see the results of improved mood, weight release, and finding enjoyment in moving your body. Buy this program and watch yourself flourish. What you focus on grows. Let's grow a healthy body and mind. Reserve this program today by contacting Camille at flourishwellnessconsulting.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wellness Wisdom. I'm talking to Holly Toronto today. She's awesome. I love what we're sharing because we have some synergy here, and we're really talking about loving your body and being at peace with yourself and finding your purpose and well-being in life by starting to be aware of some of the beliefs that you have and shifting those beliefs and then really nurturing and nourishing yourself. And I love this. And this is something that, I feel like helps us have a lifetime of wellness or a lifestyle of wellness is to just really start, believing that we're okay how we are and doing what nourishes us, what feels good to our bodies. So Holly, before the break, I asked you if you would just share with us, I call it words of wisdom, some tips or something that you would give us. Just maybe if there's a couple women out there who are thinking, oh, I really want to start making some changes. What can I do? What would you say?
Absolutely. So there's two recommendations that I would have. Usually I give people three, and we might have actually covered most of these already. Like the three tips that I give is educate yourself, find community, get support, right? And I'll focus on the education piece of it. And if we kind of get to the others, that's cool too. But the education piece of it is about surround sound in your life with thoughts that support the experience you want to be having in your body, right? There is oodles and oodles of resources out there and books. Like I've already mentioned a few, like Intuitive Eating and Body Respect. Another one that I highly recommend by Megan Jane Crabb is a book called Body Positive Power. Really starting to bring some of those into your life, maybe like throwing away some of the diet and detoxy books and like grabbing some of the books that really reinforce the way that you want to be feeling in your body. But then I also, and this is like a little controversial sometimes, but I also encourage my clients to use social media as a tool to support them in healing their body image. And, for some, social media is like a huge detriment to their emotional well-being, right? Because they're filling their brain finally, yes, curated images. But there's so many people out there doing this work that are in diverse bodies. They have diverse backgrounds and experiences and abilities and skin colors, like all of those things. And really try, just go to the hashtag. Well, I'm not sure the body positive hashtag is the best one to go to right now because it's a little skewed sometimes, but body liberation would be a really great hashtag to go to on Instagram, and just starting to find some of these women who maybe look like you, they're in bigger bodies than you, they have different skin color than you, and start to curate your social media feed so you're broadening your view of what's an acceptable body, right? What's a worthy body? What's a beautiful body, right? And really filling your mind with those and knowing that you are totally empowered and welcome to unfollow people who make you feel bad about yourself. So if there's certain accounts that that you're following, you look at them and you're like, oh, if only I looked like her, only I ate like how she ate, or worked out as much as she did, then maybe I would have the things that I want. Cut them out. Just unfollow. I
agree.
Them,
yes.
And really lean into what's a more realistic, and not even just realistic, but how can we really, again, broaden our view of what's a beautiful body, which is all bodies.
Oh, thank you so much. And what we feed grows, right? So whatever we bring into our mind, and maybe, this dieting culture and everything that's been fed, that's, it's so interesting to really, when you think about all the money that's made from telling women they're not enough. So you need to have this cream or this diet or this whatever. And if we all just said we're good, then those industries would be out of business.
Fall to the ground.
So, I just love that idea of starting to fill your news feeds and with people and even your friends. We become like the people we hang out with. I've had many times where I have said to friends, what are you believing about yourself when they say, oh, I'm gained weight and I look bad? And, I just start to kind of be like, hey, what do you like? What's good? And the more we can feed that, that's what we start believing, right? We start really changing that psychology and that conditioning. I love that. So tell me again, okay, Intuitive Eating, Body Respect. What was the other book about body?
Body Positive Power.
Positive Power.
Jane Crabb. Yeah, I can also send them to you too if you want to put them in the show notes.
Yeah, that would be great. I will do that. Thank you so much. This has been really, I feel like, an enlightening, empowering, just amazing conversation. And I hope those of you who are out there listening to it can just start like taking just one of these things, like, oh, I'm going to educate myself and I'm going to surround myself with others who are also very positive about their body and loving their body. Yeah, this is great. Holly, if people want to get in touch with you or kind of get involved in what you're doing, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, the best way to reach out to me would probably be through either my website, which I can also send to you, Camille.
Okay.
To put in the show notes, it's loveyourbodyyhc.com. There's a contact page there that you could just reach out to me and I would get that in an email. There's also my Instagram. That's probably where I'm most active, just kind of putting out content and connecting with people. And that's super simple. It's Holly_Toronto_coaching. And you'll see me talking a lot about what we talked about today, but that I'm also launching a new program called Homecoming. We talked about coming home to yourself, that I'm partnering with a colleague who does the exact same work as I do. And it's an immersive 8-month group coaching experience for women who are ready to play big in their life and make peace with their body and food and really kind of leave the body shame and dieting in the past and step into living the big, bold, and beautiful life they are so worthy and deserving of. And we follow that 4-part framework that I discussed today. It's going to be a really, really powerful experience that's starting in August. So you'll see me talking a lot about that as well.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing and for, your passion and the things that you've, really just got us to start thinking about. And I think it's really inspiring and exciting. And one of my things that I really believe in, and is a tagline that I use, is make peace with your body and like who you are, right? And I think that's really important. And everybody, as you listen to this, I hope you can start to really sense into who you are and the beauty that you have to share with the world, and how we can allow our brains to believe in that and to let go of some of these cultural beliefs and things that have been holding us back from really who we truly are. So thank you so much, Holly, for sharing this with us today. And everybody have a great day. Well, take care.